أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So last time we left off finishing about the pledge of Aqaba. I just wanted to add a couple of things. One of them was you guys were asking Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. He was the leader of Aus. Did I tell you he was the leader of Khazraj?
Yes.
Okay. So he was the leader of Aus. So when he became Muslim...
Actually, when you did the class lesson, you told head of Aus.
Okay.
But last lesson when you revised...
I said Khazraj. Okay. So sorry, he's the leader of Aus, not of Khazraj. Okay. Does anybody remember who Musayrin is? Usayrim?
He was the one he didn't accept Islam.
Yes, he didn't.
Later on in the Battle of Uhud,
Yes.
before he could pray.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So he's one of the people who, it said about him that his amalun qalil, ajruhu kathir, that his actions were little, but his reward is great. وَهُوَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. Okay. Chronologically, in which year do the 6 people come and speak to the Prophet ﷺ? In the 10th year. Then when do the 12 people come and do the first bay'ah of Aqaba? 11th year. And when does the second bay'ah of Aqaba take place? 12th year.
Hijrah 13th.
Yes. And Hijrah is sort of the beginning of the 13th year. Because imagine Hajj and then... Yeah, okay. And how many people during the second pledge of Aqaba?
72.
Yes. So some people say 75, 76, 72, so 70 plus people, okay? And what was the difference between the first bay'ah and the second bay'ah?
There was a condition. Political.
Yes, so there was no political agreement in the first one. That's why it was called Bay'atun Nisa, the pledge of the women. And the second bay'ah had political conditions on it. Mainly protection and fighting. So it was known as the covenant of war, because they knew that if anybody opposes the Prophet ﷺ or his message, they will fight and they will defend him. So that's why it was called the covenant of war. So last time I was trying to tell you what was in the bay'ah, the second one. These few things that I can tell you about, that you obey in ease and difficulty. You obey the Prophet ﷺ in ease and in difficulty. You spend in the way of Allah. You command the good and forbid the evil. Speak the truth no matter what the consequences. So you don't lie. And he said, help me once I come to Yathrib. This is one of the few times that he refers to Madinatul Munawwara as Yathrib. Later on, he goes on to forbid using the name Yathrib for Medina, to the extent that he said, if any of you says Yathrib, you should make istighfar. Because Yathrib, every name is connected to a certain, you could say certain things that you identify with that name. Like sometimes, I've wanted to name my child a certain name, but my husband said, no, because that name has certain connections in my mind, with somebody, either somebody unpleasant or someone you don't like or someone you don't get along with. So usually names, they're connected to certain things. It's not just a floating name on its own, but it has other things. So similarly, Yathrib had a history of war, of blood shared of, like we talked about the Bu'ath, the battles of Bu'ath and all these things. And basically, right, like we said, the Aus and the Khazraj, they were experts in fighting, because this is what they had been doing for years and years. So Yathrib had its own sort of like, you could say image. And so the Prophet ﷺ, when he comes and he changes the name to Madinatul Munawwara, that has a separate identity now. So you can't mix the two. So that's why, he didn't want anybody to use the word Yathrib again in connection with this city, because this was his town now, and it's going to have a completely, you could say, a makeover or a different identity, and he wants people to associate it with that identity, not the previous one. And then the last thing is, that is the last thing where he said that, help me when I come to Yathrib, like you help your family and your children. Basically, he's saying that I will be like a part of your family and you will protect me if the Quraysh try and fight me. And Abbas, his uncle, who was with him in this meeting, when the meeting was finished, he's looking around. He looked very worried. He looked very concerned, and he looked almost angry. And he said to the Prophet ﷺ, I don't know any of these people. And he said, these are children. Because remember, we said all their leaders, they've been killed off. These are all like young faces, young blood. And he said, these are kids. He said, what are you doing? You're putting your life in the hands of these people. And he said, I don't know what you are doing. I've never seen them, these people that you are making a pledge with. And he's obviously concerned. But although he didn't know them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew these people. And Allah knew that these people are going to be the bearers of the new phase of Islam, and the Islam that is going to be, is going to be carried on to the next generations. They are going to be the carriers of that Islam. So, sometimes you might not recognize somebody's worth. You might not know someone. But as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows them, that's the most important thing. And the same thing with us. We might be nobody to X, Y, or Z person. But as long as we are somebody in the sight of Allah, that's the most important thing. Because that's where the ultimate success is. It's not in getting recognition from this one or that one or this group or that group of people. But it's in getting recognition from Allah. That's what your aim should be, and that is what you should be aiming towards. Okay. Another thing I didn't mention to you clearly is, if you remember, I said to you that when the second pledge took place, there was I said to you that the Quraysh found out, and that's why they came asking all the different tents. So what happens is that Shaitan, basically, who is, you could say, the leader of he's the leader of the shayateen of the valley of Aqaba. He becomes really desperate when this agreement is made and finalized, okay, because he knows that now Islam is going to take root, and that's what he does not want. He does not want Islam to spread. So out of desperation and feeling a sense of loss, feeling a sense of helplessness, and feeling that he can't do anything else, because shaitan is weak. He can only whisper. We get scared of shayateen and we get scared of jinn, but they are weak. Allah has only given them limited powers. They cannot do more than what Allah has allowed them to do. And so he screams out and he says, O people sleeping in the tents, do you not know that a group of rebels have gathered together with the Sabi' to wage war against you? So when he screams this out, that's why the next day the Quraysh, they do their rounds. And like I said, it just shows how overwhelmed and helpless he feels. That he comes out in public, because usually shaitan, he does things in whispers, quietly, behind the scenes. You don't see him, but he's doing his job. But this time, behind the scenes is not working, so he has to come out publicly and scream out and make this noise. And the shaitan does this in a few other occasions as well during the Seerah. You'll see maybe a little later on. And you know when he says they've come out together with the Sabi' to wage war against you. Has anybody heard this word before? In the Quran? Mm-hmm. No, Sabi'. No. In Baqarah?
Riba.
No. Inna alladhina amanu walladhina hadu wan nasara was-sabi'un. Yeah. Okay, so that sabi'un is not the same as this. Okay, but this word was used by the Quraysh of Makkah to refer to monotheists. Anyone who is a monotheist was called a sabi'. So if anybody would become a Muslim, they would say that he's become sabi'. They wouldn't call him Muslim. They'd say he's become sabi'. Sabi' for them meant a monotheist. Someone who doesn't worship idols and 50 other gods. He only worships one God. For them, that was a sabi'. In the Quran, the sabi'un has a different meaning, and it refers to a specific group of people who actually exist even today. The majority of them exist in Iraq, and a lot of them have now migrated to America. So some of them are in Iraq and some of them are in America. And they are, at the moment, they're not known as Sabi'un, they are known as Manda'iyun. And in English they're called Mandayans. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Mandayans?
Yeah. So they are the Sabi'un of today. And those are the people, you know, who...
Wait, they're a tribe?
Yeah, they're like, you could say, like a cult or a group.
It's a religion.
It's a religion. And it seems like they do have some form of scripture and revelation or something, because they have very... they seem to have existed before the time of Christianity. So their religion is actually very, very old. And they claim to have a book from Sheath. Now, I don't know if this is referring to the son of Nuh alayhi salam or the son of Adam alayhi salam, but it can't be Adam alayhi salam, it can't be going that far back. So it must be one of the sons of Nuh alayhi salam. Maybe the name that I got is not right. Yeah. Yes, I remember mentioning the names of his sons. But anyway, so one of the sons of Nuh, they say they had a book from him, and they say they have the concept of tahara, they have the concept of not eating pork, and ghusl after janaba. They believe in the power of stars, and anyway, these are just the fact that they have some of these rules. It just shows that they did have a form of scripture, which obviously now has become all, you know, muddled up, and maybe some of it is lost. But yeah.
2 or 3 lines are given about them in the Quran. Just a few lines.
Yes, yeah.
But do they believe in one God? Only?
Sorry?
Do they believe in one God?
I'm not sure, because they believe in the power of stars. So I think they do attribute, shirk. Yeah, I don't know like astrology, but they believe, I think, that the stars have different powers. So I don't know if they only worship Allah or they worship the stars, or I'm not too clear on that. Anyway, and the name of the leader of the shayateen who screamed this out was Azab ibn Uzayb. He was the shaitan of Aqaba. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, because he knew that this is the shaitan screaming out to everyone, he said, I swear by Allah, ya aduullah, I will deal with you. And then, you know, he became really scared.
What was his name?
Azab ibn Uzayb. Yeah, they have, shayateen have these, like, you know, who's the shaitan who distracts you in salah? Yes. Khanzab. Yeah. So they have these names which have like recurring consonants in them. Oh no. I was hoping that. Can you put this for charging?
He's the one who's distracting you.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to challenge my eyes. I had reading glasses, but like I said to you, they have a story, so they've gone missing. So now we're going to talk about the lessons that we learned from these two pledges of Aqaba. Okay. So the first thing that I was telling you last time, if you remember, is not to procrastinate. Yes. Sorry, I just need to get my notes up on this. So when I say do not procrastinate, the lesson we learned from them is that when they went to Medina, as you know, the Prophet ﷺ did not go with them, right? It was just, first it was the first 6, then it was the 12, then it was the 70. The time of the second pledge, the Prophet ﷺ, the time of the first pledge, he sends with them Mus'ab ibn Umair. And of course Mus'ab ibn Umair, he does dawah to the people who are not Muslim, but he also teaches the people who are Muslim how to practice their religion. And then they said that they knew how to do their salah, they knew a lot of the basic things of their religion before the Prophet ﷺ comes to Medina. So what this teaches us is that a lot of the times we wait for the best opportunity, the best surroundings, the best situation to move forward in our deen. Interestingly, we don't procrastinate with things that have to do with, for example, wealth or beauty or food, right? We don't say, I'm going to eat when I can actually cook really good food. Or we don't say, I'm going to start earning money when I find a job that I really am happy with and I'm comfortable with. So as soon as you feel that you can put two things together and eat, you're happy to do that because you need to fill your stomach. Or if you feel that, this is a good job, I can start off with this as a stepping stone and then I can move up the ladder. But when it comes to the deen, we say, nobody should go for jihad until they 100% are practicing their deen. I can't do dawah until I know I have studied like all the books of hadith. You don't need to do that, Sorry?
Hajj.
Yeah, Hajj. I will not go for Hajj until, I have done, all the sins that I can do before I'm purified. I can't imagine why anybody else wants to delay their Hajj apart from, because they're waiting to, just accumulate. As you can't play these games with Allah. So, number one, always, in all aspects of your life, make the most of what Allah has given you. Make the most of your situation. Wherever you are, even if you're on the moon, your Jannah is with you. Your Jannah is what you make your Jannah. It does not depend on anyone. It does not depend on anything or any place. So until you train yourself to do that, you will always feel like a lost puppy. Even if you have the best resources at hand. I know people, for example, like I know a fellow homeschooler mum. And mashallah, Allah has given her the ability, wealth-wise to, buy whatever she needs. And so she keeps buying and buying more resources and more books and more this. And she has got so much now that she's become so confused. She doesn't know where to start. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to use, what not to use, what to leave. And this is what happens when you don't make do with what you have to start with. So if you just keep looking for more and more and more, you're going to come to a point where you will become so confused. You won't even be able to move forward anymore. So with whatever little Allah has given you, wherever Allah has put you, He's put you in a non-Muslim country, He's put you in a Muslim country, He's put you in a Muslim country with restrictions, He's put you in a village, He's put you in a town, wherever you are, there is always something you can do. Nobody can make the excuse that, because I was here, I never really learned anything about my religion. Nowadays, mashallah, honestly, no one has any excuse. Maybe 50 years ago, when there was no YouTube and there was only books and things like that, okay, it needed more effort, right? You have to get a book, you have to read it, you have to make notes or whatever, attend a class. So if you can find an alim and study with him, excellent, go for it. If you can't, find someone who has more knowledge than you. Study with them. If you can't even find that, get a book. Get a YouTube video. There are so many ways today to learn. We have no excuse at all. Unless, you're living somewhere where there is nobody, no internet, no books, which, is not usually any of our situations. But even then, you can still do ibadah, you can still make dua to Allah to, bring the knowledge to you. But don't delay these things. Don't put them off and say, when I finish, like a lot of people say, inshallah, after next Ramadan, I will start wearing hijab, or, after next Ramadan, I will start doing my Seerah classes or my tafsir, or I'll start memorizing Quran after next Ramadan, or after I've done Hajj, I'll do this and that. So don't do that. Allah has given you life. Allah has given you time and opportunity now. So use it. Do whatever you can do. Whatever is in your reach, you try and do that, whatever that might be. And as far as dawah is concerned, you don't have to be a scholar, and you don't have to have a microphone and sit and deliver a lecture to do dawah. You hear something today in the dars, you feel this really benefited me, I really learned something. Go back, tell your husband, tell your mother-in-law, tell your sister, tell your family. If nothing else, send the link, the recording to your family members. This is dawah. Anything you learn that you think is beneficial and good, share it with someone, even if it's just a few words. You say, I learned something really interesting. The name of the first person who migrated, for example, or anything you learn, and sharing that is dawah. And if you read in the Quran, the majority of the screaming of the people of hellfire is, when they are, I know, I told him don't come, but he insisted. Okay, so the majority of the screaming of the people of hellfire is because of procrastination, right? Because they put things off. So they will say to Allah, send us back so that we can give sadaqah. Send us back so that we can pray. Send us back so that we can... So these are all things that they would have done, but they didn't. So now they're saying, send us back for this. So don't procrastinate. Don't put things off. The second thing we learn from this is that Islam is a religion of sacrifice. When the Prophet ﷺ told the Ansar his terms of the agreement of the pledge of Aqaba, they asked, what are we going to get in exchange? And he said, Jannah. Islamic work requires a lot of sacrifice. If you are doing it to get a payback, if you are doing it for some material gain, then you're in the wrong place and you're in the wrong job. Whatever you do in your Islam, do it for Jannah. Do it for Allah's pleasure. Don't do it for anything else. If you get something else, good for you. But that should not be your aim. And this... I think nowadays a lot of people have a lot of things mixed up. So some people are doing this for fame. Some are doing it for money. I mean, I'm shocked, some people are putting such, high price tags on attending an Islamic lesson that it makes you confused, that why can't I have access to this knowledge, without this price tag. But when you do something, as much as possible, do it with a clean intention, and do it just for Allah and for Jannah. Yes.
These not very well-to-do people, they teach Quran and they take money.
Yeah, it's permissible. The scholars have allowed it. I don't know how noble it is, but Allah knows everybody's situation. Yeah, that maybe. Yeah, and maybe And maybe some people are very needy and there is nothing else that they can do. So, inshallah, I hope so, inshallah. Allah accept it from them. Of course, in terms of ajr, I don't know, that's up to Allah. But it is permissible. Yeah.
Generally, don't for example, imams and teachers who teach Quran, if they don't have money, the community is supposed to give them a steps.
Yes, exactly. So it would be nice if people voluntarily gave them something, but maybe people are not very generous, so they put a price tag to it, because if they say, oh, give me anything, you might just put 20 riyals in their hands. So they say, okay, I'll take 150 or something.
Spend all their time doing
Yes.
this, so where they will get the money. So it's for them like a profession, so
Yeah.
they have to.
This religion demands that you give it everything, okay? And that means sacrificing your time, your energy, your, efforts but what you're getting in return is big, right? You're getting Jannah in return for it. So that should be your focus. And the Prophet ﷺ said, what Allah is offering you is very expensive. What Allah is offering you is Jannah. And we need to pay the price for that, right? The third thing we learn is that we need to be prepared and ready. When the Prophet ﷺ, makes this pledge, he's very clear in his words. He doesn't pad his agreement or his contract with them. He makes it clear that you will have to fight, you will lose life, there will be bloodshed. It's going to be tough, it's going to be hard. That's why, remember when we talked about it, one of the Ansar, they are not Ansar yet, but one of them, he puts his hand in the hand of the Prophet ﷺ and he tells everybody to stop. He says, Ruwaydan, he says, slow down. Do you realize what you guys are getting into? Right? He says that, do you understand that women will be widowed, children will be orphaned? That's what we're getting ourselves into. And they say, okay, if you're done, please move your hand so we can give him the pledge. So they're ready, right? And we need to be ready as well. And when we work for this deen, there will be hardship, there will be difficulty, there will be opposition. Like I always say, when you say La ilaha illallah, you enter the washing machine, right? So it is going to be, and Allah says in the Quran, right? He says, do you think you will say La ilaha illallah wa la tuftanun, that you will not be tested, you will not be tried? That is the whole purpose of our existence here. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Right? So Allah has put us here to see which of us is able to do the best and to do, the most. It's like any other test. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said, اخشيشنوا فإن النعمة لا تدوم. So he said that get used to roughness or difficulty, because he said the ease and comfort is not going to last. And if you think about it, if you are just used to comfort all the time, let's say you travel, let's say your flight gets delayed and you have to spend a night at the airport, it's very hard on some people who are not used to sitting on hard chairs or, who have never had any difficulty or any struggle in life. And the thing is that the comfort doesn't last, and we see that over and over again in history, ourselves, with our own eyes. Like, for example, when Saddam Hussein decided to take over Kuwait, people in Kuwait were living luxurious, comfortable lives like a lot of the Arabs in Saudi Arabia, for example. Very, very comfortable malls, restaurants, music, fun, frolic. It was heaven. You should have seen how they came scampering like mice in cars, right? Stranded, no clothes, no food, nothing. So when Allah pulls the rope, none of us knows. When things are going to become hard, none of us knows. When things become hard, or when, the noose tightens, it happens very suddenly. So when, for example, a war starts or some fighting starts or something, it all happens very suddenly. So he said that, get used to some roughness. So we're just too used to our creature comforts, We should sleep on the floor sometimes. We should eat on the floor sometimes. We should sit on hard surface sometimes. We shouldn't just be used to comforts. We should make wudu with cold water sometimes. Because you don't know, you might be in a situation one day where there is nothing but cold water. So what are you going to do, So get used to doing things with a little bit of difficulty and struggle. At least try it a few times. I remember there was a friend of mine I had long time ago when I was a teenager, and I went to visit her, and I opened, I rang the bell, she opened the door, I went in, and everybody's like sweating, and I went in, I was sweating as well, and I said to her, what exactly are you doing? Why is the AC off? This is in Dubai, in like peak summer. She said, well, I'm just trying to see how the Sahaba would have felt in the summer when they didn't have air conditioning. And so she had, kept the air conditioning off and everything. And it's just interesting to do it at least once in a while to see what it's like. Like I said to you, that when we go for Umrah, we think, I feel like the Sahaba now, The Sahaba were not going back to a 5-star hotel and a buffet breakfast, right? They were sucking on date stones, and they were sitting under the sun, and at the most, maybe a palm tree. So we don't really know what it was like for them. So sometimes it's nice. That same friend of mine, she said to me, sometimes I take ghusl I just fill up a little bottle of water, and she said, I just use half of it. And that's a really good practice, because Allahu Alam how many buckets we are using just for wudu, let alone ghusl or washing ourselves on the toilet. They would use stones to clean themselves. So it's good to just, try these things out sometimes just to see what it's like. We'll come back, inshallah, after salah and continue, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So we were talking about being prepared and being ready. So you should always be prepared and ready, because the situation is not always going to stay the same, and when things change, they change very suddenly. And also we need to remember that this is not an easy walk, and it's not a walk in the park, staying on the straight path. So we need to try and, inshallah, be prepared for the struggles and the challenges and the difficulty. Shall I just continue? Yeah. You can see me in the light of the iPad. Okay. The next thing that you learn from this is never trivialize anything. If you come back and look at how the Prophet ﷺ started this, who did he start with? He started with 6 people. He didn't even know them. Because remember, before that I said he was going from camp to camp, and Abu Bakr was with him, and he would tell him that these are such and such, these are well-known people from such tribe, and etc. When he comes to the Khazraj, and they say that we are the Khazraj, he says, Manil Qawm, which Khazraj, who are you? He doesn't understand who these people are. They're completely unknown. And he just sits in the valley of Aqaba and talks to them. They don't even have what you'd call a presence. Like some of the other tribes, they got big leaders, big names, they got big camping site and everything. These guys, they're just like ordinary people. They're just sitting there, The thing is that he's aiming for what you'd call the big fish. And that's a natural thing. That's the normal thing that you would expect anyone to do. Like, let's say when you're starting off your business, you're not going to go to some small apartment building and advertise your business, right? You're going to go to big offices, big malls, big stores, right? Because you want your business to pick up. You don't want to go to some unknown place where it's just they're going to find out and it's going to die after that. So it's a natural thing that we like to aim high. We like to go to the more, the big names or the more prominent places or prominent names. But you don't know where the success is written, and you don't know where it's going to come from. Only Allah knows that. And that's why you should never think anything is too small for you to do. Even when it comes to actions, any little good you can do it. That's why I said, even when it comes to dawah, if the only person you can think of telling something good you've learned is your husband, tell him. Maybe he'll go and tell somebody else, and then they'll go and tell somebody else, and this is going to grow. Remember the story I told you a long time ago about this student in America who was just distributing masahif, right? And one of the people he gives the mushaf to is this guy who becomes Muslim. He goes on to become an imam. He goes on to convert and give lots of people their shahada. Now on the day of judgment, like I said, this student, he's going to come and he's going to find these mountains of salihat, and he's thinking, where did this come from? I didn't convert so many, I didn't give any of these people shahada. And the people who give their shahada, all their good actions, everything is going in this guy's scales. What was he doing? If you go back to the beginning, he's just giving out masahif, and he's thinking, why am I even doing this? Right? He's thinking that, what is the point of this action? What is the point of this activity? Why are they wasting our time standing in the cold, on the street, giving out these masahif? But you don't know. And because you don't know, you should do. Whatever it is you can do, whatever, small, big, do it. Even if it is moving these hangers from the floor, just do it. You don't know, how many hasanat you're getting for these things. Because, like the Prophet ﷺ said, that the lowest branch of iman is to move something harmful from the road. So you don't know what is going to, bring you the benefit. Although, having said that, I honestly don't understand. Are people dressing up in the middle of the street? Why and how do these hangers end up in the middle of the road? I don't understand. Do they take their clothes off and wear laundry, ironed clothes in the middle of the road and then chuck the hanger? This is a mystery, how they even end up there. But anyway. Okay. So, never trivialize anything that you do. And whether it's small or big. And also, there's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said that when the trumpet is blown, as in now the creation is coming to an end, right? And he said, if you have seeds in your hand that you are about to plant, he said, throw them, as in plant them. It is a hasana. Don't underestimate anything. On the day of judgment, right? You will be in need of every Alhamdulillah you said, every Allahu Akbar you said, every La ilaha illallah you said. You will be in need, desperate need of any good you did. It's like somebody taking an exam and knowing that this is a tough exam and I need to get as many marks as I can. So you will go through that question paper, and let's say you see a question which has 10 marks and you can only answer one part of that question. Would you leave it? No. You think, okay, let me answer that, at least out of these 10 marks, I'll get that one. So we should be even more eager to get these marks that we're getting here. So even if it's half a mark, go for it. Going back to what I was saying, that, he started off with these 6 people. The whole process takes about 3 years, right? But he did not know that these 6 people are going to end up, becoming the nation of the, future of Islam. And that's what happens. The other thing we see is that even though this is the Prophet ﷺ, and he knows that Allah is on his side, he knows Allah has sent him for this mission, he knows that Allah has a plan in place, and that he's doing exactly what Allah has told him to do. But he doesn't just depend on that, as in he doesn't say, I have Allah on my side, I'm just going to go and just do whatever I have to do without any protection, without any plan in place, without any organization. No. So while he's speaking to the delegation during the second pledge of Aqaba, which is 70 plus people, Ali radiallahu anhu and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, they are both standing outside and watching, making sure that none of the Quraysh get wind of this or come or enter the room, and there's no problem. So what this shows us is that if the Prophet ﷺ is taking these precautions and he's planning and he's thinking and he's using a strategy to do something, how much more should we do it? And that brings me to the next point, which is that our religion is an organized religion, and we don't do things in a haphazard manner. So after the second pledge, the Prophet ﷺ, because now there's so many people, mashallah, and there's even more in Medina, like we said, he basically what would you say, delegates, or he selects 12 nuqaba, or 12 leaders, and he divides the people into groups. And these leaders are the ones who have to report back to the Prophet ﷺ, and he gives them instructions. So it just happens in a more organized manner, rather than, having to send out individual messages and, individual instructions. And so it just shows that, our religion is organized. It's not haphazard. And
This is the next point, sister.
yeah, this is the next point, yeah. So we've done, I think, 5 points now. So we said don't procrastinate, sacrifice, need to be prepared and ready, don't trivialize.
Five.
And then the 5th one is be organized. Yeah, and then the last point is the role of women. So if you notice, the second pledge is not a quiet and simple pledge. It's a serious pledge. Like I said, it's like the covenant of war. These 2 women who take this covenant, their names are Nusayba, Nusayba bint Ka'ab, and the second one is called Asma bint Amr. We don't know much about Asma bint Amr because there's thousands of Sahaba who you don't really know their names or their lives. We only know about a handful of them, really. And the Nusayba bint Ka'ab, we know some things about her. She participated in the Battle of Uhud. So she lives up to her covenant. She gives the pledge and she lives up to it. She fights, she, supports the Prophet ﷺ, defends him, and whatever she can do. She participated in the Battle of Uhud. She sustained 12 wounds in the Battle of Uhud. She participated in Bayatul Ridwan, which we will cover later on, inshallah, which is another big thing for her. Yes, yeah. And that is another big thing for her to have, witnessed. So these are 2 big pledges that she takes part in. And her son becomes a general under Khalid ibn al-Walid. And her son is martyred in front of her eyes by Musaylama al-Kadhab. And the son of Nusayba. He's, I don't know his name. But he's martyred in front of her eyes, and he's basically cut into pieces by Musaylama. And when she's in her 50s, she participates in the Battle of Yarmouk, which is against the Romans. And in that battle, her hand is cut off. And then the biography runs dry. You don't really know where she goes after that, how she dies, when she dies, Allahu Alam. But this is the information that we do have about her. And so it just shows you that women have a role to play as well. They're not like they're not necessarily silent onlookers. They can also participate. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ, he's known to have never touched a woman who's not related to him. So he does not, they don't have to hold his hand to give the bay'ah. They just give it verbally. Okay. Okay, now the Prophet ﷺ, I'm just going to start this off, inshallah, and then we'll stop, inshallah. But after the Treaty of Aqaba, the Prophet ﷺ, he makes an announcement to the people of Mecca. And he says, Allah has shown me the land that you will emigrate to. And it is the land of date palms between two volcanic plains. So, in another narration in Imam Ahmad, he says, I was shown the land of your hijrah. It is a land with a lot of palm trees between two volcanic rocky tracks. This is the same narration as what I just told you. In another narration in Bukhari, he says, I have seen in my dream that I am migrating from Mecca to a land rich with palm trees. I initially thought that it is Yamama or Hajar, but then it turned out to be Yathrib. So he is shown where he is going to migrate to, or where the people are going to migrate to in a dream. And even today, I'm sure you would have noticed, when you're near the airport of Medina, have you seen out of the window?
Yes.
There is tons of volcano, as in like remnants of a volcano, right?
Black.
There's all this black, uneven kind of like rock. And Yamama and Hajar have a lot of palm trees, but they don't have any volcanoes or volcanic tracks or plains. Medina is the only place which fits this description of having lots of palm trees and having this volcanic plains on both sides. So you see it near the airport of Medina, and then there's another part of it as well, which is full of this volcanic plain.
Because of the fire.
So there was a volcano that happened that also caused that to happen, but this was, I think, even previous to that, because there were these mountains or volcanoes in Medina and they erupted. And as you know, or you may not know, that Medina was prone to multiple earthquakes in the past, and they happened so many times during the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He got on the pulpit and he said to the people, he said, if you don't stop sinning, I will leave Medina. Because, earthquakes, this is not this is an adab. So, he got worried that, perhaps this is because of people's, sins. And even now, until today, there are earthquakes in Medina. And, one of my friends who lives in Medina, she said to me, when I go out, I just tell my kids, in case there's an earthquake, just go and sit under the table. And I was like, what? You say that to your kids? I said, when I leave the house, I tell my kids, just stay away from the door and don't turn the fire on, the stove. If anybody calls, say Mama's out, you tell them that if there's an earthquake, go under the table. I mean, this is like normal for people living in Medina, to like watch out for things like that. Similarly, I had a friend in Mecca, and she had to watch out for snakes. And there was once she had a snake in her house, and that's because of the terrain over there.
Earthquake and floods also, no? It's as
Yeah. Floods usually come in Makkah. Makkah gets flooded because it's a valley. Okay. So, and like I already told you that the Prophet ﷺ, he changed the name of Yathrib to Medina, and he said if anybody uses the name Yathrib, they should make istighfar, because he wanted to, change the identity of that city. Now, I will just tell you one story. There are a number of stories when it comes to the hijrah, but I will tell you one story today, and then we'll continue next time, inshallah. I'm going to tell you the story of the hijrah of Salama. Salama narrates this hadith, and she says, by the way, before I start, Abu Salama is one of the first people to migrate to Medina, okay? And they were also amongst the people who migrated to Abyssinia. So they are known as the family of the two migrations.
Is she the one that has the argument with Amr later on? About migrating?
No, I don't think so.
This is the one parents captivate.
Yeah.
I know that, but
I don't remember her having an argument.
Doesn't someone argue with Amr and say that like we migrated and Marwan says like we're better than you because we stayed with the Prophet and then she goes and she asks the Prophet.
I don't think it was her. I'm not sure if it was her. I have read that story, but I'm thinking that was somebody else. I think that was an Abyssinian woman, and her name was similar. Her name was, I think, Salma or something like that, and she he says that to her. But we will come to that story as well. Actually, we will cover it inshallah, but it comes a little later on. Okay, so a few points about them: that they are the first family to migrate to Medina, and number two, that they are known as the family of the two migrations because they migrate to Abyssinia and then they migrate to Medina. If you remember, the migration to Abyssinia was how many times? Twice. So the first one, they all migrate. There is a small number of them migrated. Why do they come back to Mecca?
Because of the rumors.
There was a rumor that, the Quraysh are, that they've become Muslim. And so they all come back, and then they find out that was a false rumor. So some of them go back. Abu Salama decides to continue staying. So he doesn't go back the second time to Abyssinia. Then when these changes happen and he hears that people are migrating to Medina now, that's the new base. So he packs up his things and his family and he says, come on, we're going to go to Medina. And it's very similar to you see, even today, you see some families, they're very eager to do whatever, wherever they can find the khair, they try and go there, they try and do that for their kids and etc. Okay, so because this is the first family who's actually moving to Medina, they are a bit, you could say, naive or unprepared for the reaction. So he just picks up his things, gets his camel ready, gets his wife, children, a child, puts them on the camel, and they're ready to leave. And as they're going, the Quraysh turn up and they say, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? And he says, I'm a free man, I want to go to Medina. So what's the problem with that, Because he's not a slave. He's free to leave Makkah and go to Medina or do whatever he wants to do. And they say, now, another tricky part in this situation is that Abu Salama is not a Qurayshi. He belonged to another tribe. And sometimes, in some situations, what they would do is when they would marry a woman, they would move into her tribe instead of her getting married and moving into her husband's tribe. So in this situation, Abu Salama had moved into because Salama is from the Quraysh. So he had moved into her tribe. So when he wants to leave, they say, we cut off our connection with you. You're not Quraysh anymore. You can leave. But she's not going anywhere. She's staying here.
She's part of us.
Yeah. So they take her away, and then when this drama happens, Abu Salama's family turns up, and they say, well, you can keep her, but we'll take the boy, because he doesn't belong to the Quraysh. He's, his father's son. So they take the child, Abu Salama's family. The Quraysh take Salama, and Abu Salama sits on his riding animal, camel, donkey, whatever it is, and he goes off to Medina. So the entire family is split. Man goes to Medina, wife stays in Makkah, and the child is taken by the family of Abu Salama. So they're all split. And then I'll tell you what happens, but let me read her narration of the story. We came back from Al-Habasha. Habasha is Abyssinia. And my husband wanted to go again to Al-Habasha. But then he heard that Medina is the new land of Hijrah and that there are some Muslims there. So he decided to take his family and go to Medina. Jazakallahu Khairan. Bismillah. May Allah give you the drink from the Hawd, inshallah. So he heard that Medina is the new land of Hijrah and that there are some Muslims there. So he decided to take his family and go to Medina. he mounted me on a camel and he placed my son on my lap. And we were ready to leave Makkah. But then my family came to me and said, we are not going to allow you to go with your husband. We are not going to allow him to take you with him to that foreign land. So they pulled me away from my husband. When Banu al-As'ad, the family of Abu Salama, saw that, they came in and said, well, we are not going to allow you to take the child. So they took the child with them. So that's how they're all split. Salama says, I would go out of my home every day to the valley and sit on a rock and cry for hours. And I would do that on a daily basis. And that continued for about a year. It's not a few weeks, not a few days, not a few months, for a whole year. Imagine this woman, she's a mother, she's a wife, and this is a little child. It's not like, she's a new mom. So then one of the Banu al-Mughira, my relatives, saw the condition I was in. Banu al-Mughira, the man who she's talking about, is her uncle. And he said to my family, are you not having any mercy and sympathy on this woman? Allow her to go and join her husband. So finally they said to her, you are free to leave. When the family of Abu Salama, when the family of Abu Salama found out that, they've released her, they said, they gave her son back to her. And they said, now you can join your husband. So Salama picked up her child, Salama, and she heads to Medina. She's so relieved, she can finally go and get on with her life. Now, obviously, she's alone. Her husband is not there. So it's just her and her child. Now, going from Makkah to Medina was almost a 2-week journey. It was not something that you could just do, in a day or 2 days. So she leaves Makkah and she gets up to Tan'im. You must have heard of Tan'im. A lot of people go there to renew their ihram and go back and do Umrah. So it's out of Makkah, but it's not very far out of Makkah. It's still, a few miles from Makkah. So she gets up to Tan'im. And she meets somebody called, now remember this name because we'll talk about him more later on, Uthman bin Talha. And my daughters are going to get a surprise today because they've been waiting for this part of the story for a long time, and they'll see why I'm saying that. So, Uthman bin Talha, it's my bedtime. Uthman bin Talha, he says, daughter of Abu Umayyah, where are you heading? So she says, I'm going to Medina. By the way, there's no hijab, has not been ordained yet, okay? So she says, I'm going to Medina. So he says, do you have anyone to accompany you? She says, no, I'm alone. So he says, well, I will accompany you. It is not appropriate to leave you alone in this travel. I mean, she's not just going, next door or something. She's going to another town or city or whatever you would like to call it, which is a good few days of journey, and she's alone with a child. Now, Uthman bin Talha at this point is not a Muslim. He's a mushrik. But you can see he's very well-mannered, very noble. So, he guards her and protects her and takes her on this journey. And Salama says, and I swear I was never in the company of any Arab more honorable than him. When we made a stop, he would make my camel kneel, and then he would move away until I would have dismounted, and then he would come back and take the camel and tie it, and then he would leave and go and sleep under a tree, far away from me. And the next day in the morning, he would bring my camel prepare the saddle, and then he would call me to come and mount, and he would leave. And when I was on the camel, he would come back, and then he would guide me through this trip. And this is how they continue their journey. Very respectfully, very honorably, not making her uncomfortable, not making her uneasy in any way, and, at the same time helping her out. He continued doing that until we reached the outskirts of Medina, and we saw Quba in the distance. He pointed to Quba and said, "See that village over there? That is where your husband is." And he said, "Now you are on your own." So at that point, he says, "Okay, now I've got you near enough. Now I'm going to go back and, you can carry on." Now remember, he brings her on her animal. So he guides the animal to, up to Medina. When he drops her off, he doesn't even have a riding animal, he goes back on his own. So it's very, very noble and kind of him to do this. And he doesn't even know that this woman is going to be the future Mu'mineen, right? She's going to end up becoming one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Salama comments and says, "I know of no other family in Islam who suffered like that of Abu Salama. And I swear, I never had a more honorable companion than Uthman bin Talha." She was so impressed with his behavior and his manners. And she says, Uthman bin Talha had so much nobility because, mind you, there was a lot of animosity between Muslims and non-Muslims. He knew she's he knew she's a Muslim, and still he was there to help her out. So for Uthman to go out of his way to, accompany her, help her to leave Makkah, which is again another thing that they're not supporting, this was a very noble act. Just to give you a little idea of Uthman bin Talha, Uthman bin Talha later on goes on to become a Muslim, but he is one of the last people from the last batch of people to embrace Islam before the conquest of Mecca. And this is a huge honor for him. Why? Because Allah says in the Quran that the people who migrated before the conquest of Mecca, the people who became Muslim before the conquest of Mecca are not the same as the people who become Muslim after the conquest of Mecca. Because after the conquest of Mecca, why do you think that is the case?
They don't have to strive.
Yeah, because it's like, once a state is established, something is established and it's successful and it's booming, there's no struggle in accepting that, right? But the struggle is when something is not doing well and you go and support it, or you think, you know what, I have faith in this is going to do well, and you go and participate in that. So there is obviously more reward in that. So he's in the last batch who becomes Muslim, and he is along with Khalid ibn al-Walid and Amr ibn al-As. Remember these three names, they're very important. They're going to pop up again inshallah later on in the Seerah. All three of them very, very noble people, and Allah honors them. They are the last batch before the conquest of Makkah to become Muslim. And the special thing about Uthman bin Talha is that he is from the family who are the keepers of the keys to Al-Kaaba. That's what they've been asking me from the time I started Seerah. Who has the keys of the Kaaba? That's why I said this is going to be something special for them. But Uthman bin Talha is from the family who are the keepers of the key of the Kaaba. And the Prophet ﷺ, when they open Makkah, after the conquest of Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ, he starts dividing duty or responsibility to people, right? So siqaya, or providing water, goes to Al-Abbas. And Abbas says, give me the keys as well. And the Prophet ﷺ says to Ali radiallahu anhu, he gives him the key, and he says, give this, the verse of in the Quran is revealed that give the amana to the people, you know. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he gives the key to Ali, and he says, give the key to Uthman bin Talha, because this is their amana, and Allah has revealed, you know, that the amana should be given to the right people. Until today, 1400 years on, it's the descendants of Uthman bin Talha who still have the key to this date. They have the key of the Kaaba, and they are known as the family of Banu Abduddar, and they hold the keys of the Kaaba. So whenever, you know, they have to open the Kaaba, to go inside, to clean it, to perfume it, for anyone to want to go and pray inside it, they have to ask them to come and unlock the door of the Kaaba so that they can enter it. And that's a big honor. You know, that's a huge honor that Allah bestowed on him. But as you can see, you know, that some of these people, they were very noble to start with. And there's a lot of khair in them. And obviously Allah knows who there is khair in and who there is not khair in. And He guides whom He wills. And Allah, you know, He has the most knowledge and the most wisdom in, you know, who is guided and who is not guided. And make Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us on the straight path, and you know, keeps those whom we love guided and on the straight path, so that we can be with them in Jannah for eternity. And that Allah helps us to stay focused and to keep purifying our intention, so that whatever we do it purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and purely for the reward of Jannah, and not for any immediate rewards here. Wa subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Any questions? No? Yes.
One question.
Yes.
Truth, we can say lies on 3 occasions, not sister. Yeah, you just mentioned you have to only speak the truth
Yes,
always. But there are
yes.
occasions where we can lie. Reconciliation between 2 people who have lost.
Yes.
Husband telling lies to the
The
wife
wife.
that you're looking very beautiful.
Yeah.
Or the vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah, yeah.
There are different lies.
Or the food is very nice.
Yeah, just to, and there's another situation where
If you're dead, if you're gonna die, my dad always, he tells us this. Anything we do bad, it's like the only time you can do this is when you're dying. And you're dying? No, so you can't do this. My dad's think, like, when you can only lie if you're gonna die.
no, there are conditions where you can tell lies. 2 or 3 conditions.
No, I don't. I've never heard of that. But the third condition
That's it.
is
No, he's like, for
it's in the
anything can happen
situation
if
of
you're dead at that time.
battle,
If your life
but
is if your life is
it's not really. It's not necessarily clearly lying, but like double speech kind of lying.
white lies.
So like you know, when the Prophet ﷺ, he was I think maybe this was during Hijrah, I'm not sure now, but somebody sees him and they ask him that, where are you from? And he says, I'm from water. So you know, he doesn't want to mention his tribe name. And of course in those days,
That's not
because
That's true.
yeah,
like,
yeah. But deception in the situation of war is allowed. You know, for example, coloring your beard or your hair black is haram. It's not permitted. But in the situation of war, it's permitted to let the opponent think that you are young and you're strong, to give victory to Islam, to give victory to Tawheed. So as far as I remember, those are the 3 situations. What was I going to say to you about the Prophet said? I can't remember now, but yeah, that's all I can remember. So, anything else? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.